And Charles goes to London to meet Ernestina's father, Mr. Freeman, and he goes there and tells him that he's not going to get the money from his uncle. He's not going to get the title either. But Mr. Freeman says, "Okay, that's all right, but you can get married, and eventually you can start working for me." Mr. Freeman wants Charles to take over his business after his time, but Charles has no interest in running a business. He is interested in having free money. He is interested in pursuing all of his passions, such as paleontology. His the idea of working in a shop for the rest of his life is appalling to him, and he starts to hate his future. Like, first of all, he is not attracted to Ernestina. Now he's about to lose all of his inheritance. Now he is faced with the prospect of working in Mr. Freeman's shop for the rest of his life. All of this come together and put him in a very bad mental state. He is afraid of his future. In order to forget all of this, he goes out to drink and he meets some of his old friends, and they have a wild night and they all go to meet sex workers. But Charles does not take part in those activities. He goes out, he leaves that place and takes a cab. A cab, here it means not our modern day Uber or Ola. It's a cab, means it's a horse drawn carriage. It's a cart drawn by horses. So on the way back, he sees a woman who looks like Sarah. She's a prostitute, and he decides to hire her, and they go to this place, they go to her flat, and they're about to have they're about to enter into a physical relationship, and he suddenly discovers that her name is also Sarah, and she kind of looks like the original Sarah. Her name is also Sarah, and this is too much for Charles, and he gets sick and he vomits. She takes care of him. She goes out to buy, get him a cab to go back home. And during this time, this lady Sarah actually has a baby, a girl, and Charles plays with the girl. Then Charles receives a note from Sarah, and there's a name of the hotel where she's staying. Sam talks to Charles and says he wants money for opening his shop, and Charles agrees to give him the money, but after his wedding. Then Charles and Sam go to Exeter, then they come back to Lyme, and Charles and Ernestina live happily ever after. Mrs. Poltny dies and goes to hell. So this is a very abrupt ending. They don't meet Sarah. Sarah goes somewhere. They are unable to find Sarah. Charles and Ernestina get married and they live happily ever after. Mrs. Poltny dies and goes to hell, and the narrator takes pleasure in describing her descent into hell. And then the narrator says this ending is false. So this is the first ending. This is one of the features of this novel. This novel has 3 separate endings. This is the first ending, and the narrator says this is a wrong ending because it's only what Charles wanted to happen. It's only Charles's wish. This is not what actually happened. We know that Sarah has given him a note containing the name of the hotel where she's staying. So Charles goes in search of Sarah to Exeter, and he goes there and sees her, and they have relations with each other. And Charles says he'll marry her, but she does not agree. And while Charles is dressing, he sees blood on his shirt. They just had sex, and he realizes that Sarah was actually a virgin. So earlier she had been telling him that she was in love with this French Lieutenant Wagner's. They were in a relationship, and he left her, and now she has this bad label of being an immoral woman. But now Charles realizes that Sarah was lying the whole time, and she has never been with any man. This is the first time that she is having a physical contact with a man, and he is shocked, and he eventually leaves. Then Charles goes to a church. All of this is too much for him to handle, and while he's sitting in the church, he realizes that all of these days he has been a very dutiful member of the society. That is, അതായത് അവരുടെ വിക്ടോറിയൻ സെൻസ് ഓഫ് മൊറാലിറ്റി അത് ഫോളോ ചെയ്താണ് ചാൾസ് ജീവിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരുന്നത്. ആൻഡ് ഹീസ് എ മെമ്പർ ഓഫ് ദ നൊബിലിറ്റി. ഹീ ക്യാൻ ഓൺലി മാരി എ പേഴ്സൺ ഫ്രം either from a rich family or from another noble family. He can never be with a woman like Sarah. He can never be with a woman with a bad name. He can never be with someone from a social um, status which is lower than his. So the society at that time was very strict like that. And while he's sitting in the church, Charles realizes that why do I live trying to please all of these people? Why do I try to please my ancestors, the ancestors who made these rules that he should only marry such and such person? So he wants to break free of all of these rules, and he wants to see everyone as equal. He doesn't want to conform to the societal standards, and he decides to marry Sarah instead of Ernestina. Next morning, Charles sends Sam to Sarah with a brooch. You know what a brooch is? It's an ornamental pin. He says that I'm breaking off my engagement with Ernestina. Here's a brooch for you. If you want to marry me, you should keep it with you. If you don't want to marry me, send it back with Sam. And Sam comes back with nothing. So Charles understands that, okay, Sarah wants to marry him since she has taken the brooch, and he goes back to Lyme and tells Ernestina, okay, I'm breaking up with you, we are not getting together. And Ernestina is so angry, she is so upset, because we feel for Ernestina, because she genuinely loved him. Her only fault is that she is a traditionalist and her personality does not match with that of Charles, and she's genuinely heartbroken when Charles breaks off his engagement with her. She begs him not to leave, and finally she falls into a swoon. She loses her consciousness, and Charles has to bring Dr. Grogan to take care of her, and Dr. Grogan is angry because he believes that Charles should not be with Sarah. Charles should be with Ernestina. That is the safe option. That is the right option. And he says that if at all you are going to break this poor woman's heart and go with that other lady, you will have to spend the rest of your life proving that he made this right choice. He has to prove to the world that he made the right choice in choosing Sarah over Ernestina. So now Charles is on a mission. He goes back to Exeter, to the hotel where Sarah is staying. And once he gets there, he realizes that she's not there. She has gone to London, and she has left no address, no way to contact her. And Charles discovers the betrayal of Sam. He discovers that Sam never delivered the letter. അപ്പം നേരത്തെ പറഞ്ഞല്ലോ, സാമിൻ്റെ കയ്യിൽ ഒരു ബ്രൂച്ച് കൊടുത്തു വിട്ടു, ഒരു ലെറ്റർ കൊടുത്തു വിട്ടു, saying that I am going to break up with Ernestine, I am going to marry you. If you want to marry me, you keep the brooch. അപ്പോൾ ബ്രൂച്ച് ഒന്നും ഇല്ലാതെയാണ് സാം തിരിച്ചു വന്നത്. So Charles believes that, okay, Sarah has decided to marry him. But later it turns out that Sam never even delivered the letter. അപ്പോൾ Sarah has probably become heartbroken, thinking that the last time they met was when they had sex, and Charles got angry and ran off. And she would be thinking that, okay, Charles does not want anything to do with her anymore. അങ്ങനെ പുള്ളിക്കാരി എക്സ്റ്റർ വിട്ടിട്ട് ലണ്ടനിലേക്ക് പോയി വിത്തൗട്ട് ലീവിങ് എനി അഡ്രസ്. So now Charles is again going to London to find her, because he has made the choice to be with her. He has to find her at any cost and be with her. And on the train to London, guess who shows up? Our narrator. Like I mentioned before, even though most of the novel is in a third person point of view, here and there the narrator will show up, and the narrator is also traveling in the train along with Charles. And the narrator decides that he will show two possible endings. Okay. So I don't know, you might have seen movies where there are multiple endings. So here that is it's not very common, but still there are films with more than one ending. One example is Hari Krishnan's in Malayalam. Apparently it has two endings. where both the male protagonists alternatively they get the woman. So it's possible to see that in no in movies, but seeing that in a novel is not very common. So here we already discussed an ending where Charles and Ernestina get together. So now we are going to discuss the second ending. Charles goes to London, looks for Sarah, does not find her, and meanwhile, Mr. Freeman, that is Ernestina's father, is very angry with him, and they want to make him pay for breaking his daughter's heart. So Freeman and his lawyers force Charles to write a confession of guilt, saying that, okay, I had an affair, it's my fault that I broke up. I have broken off my engagement with Ernestina for no reason, and I'm an immoral person. I had an affair. So this is a blow to Charles, and he becomes depressed, and he moves to Europe. He travels to Europe for a year and a half. But Charles had always wanted to travel, he had always wanted to go and see the world. But when he actually does get the opportunity to travel, he is not happy because he realizes that no matter where he goes, he's missing Sarah. He wanted to be with her. If at all he wanted to travel with her. So there's nobody to share his happiness or sorrow or any of his other feelings with. And this makes him extremely depressed. And during this time, Sam is now no longer employed by Charles. Charles has gone off on his own. Sam has started to work in Mr. Freeman's store, and he is slowly becoming successful. So at least Sam is starting to get a happy ending. And one day, Mary sees Sarah going to a house in Chelsea. Mary is Sam's wife, love interest, and later wife. They get married in the novel. And from Europe, Charles goes to the US, and he travels there also, and he prefers the US to Europe. And later he receives a telegram from his lawyer saying that Sarah has been found. He comes back to London and tries to find the house where she's living in, and she is living in the house of Dante Gabriel Rossetti, or D.G. Rossetti. So here I have marked this name because like we mentioned before, this is a historical fiction. This is a historical novel. So we will see people who actually existed in history in the novel. So he is our historical figure, D.G. Rossetti. He was an English poet and a painter. You might have studied the poem The Blessed Damozel. He also had a sister, Christina Rossetti, who was also a poet. So in the novel, Sarah is living in the house of D.G. Rossetti, and Sarah is working as his assistant. And when Charles comes to see her, she's dressed as a modern woman, and she's dressed as a new woman. So a new woman is the term used by Victorians to refer to an independent woman, a woman with like a feministic thought, someone who is capable of taking care of herself. So Sarah seems to be working with Rossetti. She is happy, she's confident, she is finally feeling like she belongs somewhere for the first time. Like we said before, she is a poor person. She was born in the peasant class, so she does not belong to the upper echelons of the society. But she can hover in the upper classes, among the upper classes, because of her education. So she does not belong in either place. Then she had this whole label of being an immoral woman or a fallen woman. So she was a pariah all of these years. She was an outcast. But with Rossetti, she has found acceptance, and she enjoys working for him. And it is shown that Sarah does not have any romantic relationship with this painter. She's just working for him. It's a very platonic relationship. And when Charles comes to see her and says that he has come to save her, let's get married, she doesn't want to be saved. She says that we cannot be together, and they have a fight, and Charles is angry. And Charles is about to leave. He's about to storm out of the house. And Sarah says that there's somebody I want you to meet, okay? And who is this somebody? Apparently, they have a child together. So we know that they were in a physical relationship. and Sarah got pregnant, and now she has a daughter called Lalag. And Sarah introduces the daughter to Charles. Charles meets her. Charles is very happy, and it is not explicitly shown in this ending, but it's a happy ending. It's shown that there is the expectation that Charles, Sarah, and their daughter will live together as a family. So now we have a third ending. Actually, the narrator is presenting it as the second ending. We have counted the previous ending where Charles and Ernestina get together, which is imagined by Charles himself. So this is the final ending, and in this ending there is no happy ending. After Charles and Sarah have this fight at Rossetti's house, Charles believes that Sarah is actually saying that they will have a platonic relationship. Rather than having a romantic relationship, they will be like friends. They will have a platonic relationship, and he does not want that. He is angry because of that, and he leaves the child even before she has the chance to introduce the child to him. She leaves the house without seeing the child, and later outside he comes to the conclusion that life is full of problems. No matter what happens, we must suffer the life. We must endure life. Life cannot be solved, but is meant to be endured. That is, whatever life throws at us, we must suffer. So the final ending is somewhat depressing. There was a more positive ending before that. So this is a very clear indication that this novel is firmly placed within the postmodernist movement, because they have experimented with the form. The novel is self-aware, the narrator is self-aware. He knows that this is a work. This is a work of fiction. This is a work that took birth in somebody's imagination. And the multiple endings, the presence of historical figures, all of this make John Fowles's French Lieutenant's Woman a very interesting read. And we will discuss the themes and the symbols in the third part of this lecture in the following video. I hope you have understood what we discussed so far, the major plot points and the characters. I hope you have understood. We will deal with the rest in the next video.